Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. It's a Carabao Cup second round / Premier League preview mashup. Decent wins for Spurs and Newcastle last night against two of the form sides in the Championship. A debut strike from Sávio, he looked very happy, while Newcastle welcomed Nico González as they rebuild their midfield. They play each other on Saturday evening. We have the other two crisis clubs, Manchester United and Aston Villa, represented on the panel, so a good chance for a pessimism update as United face Ipswich and Villa host Arsenal this weekend. Palace seem to be the side most desperate for the window to slam shut, with rumours swirling around Sarr, Mateta and Wharton. They play Man City, while two form sides, brackets 100% records this season from one game, Chelsea and Brighton meet at the Bridge. Oliver Glasner's getting booed already at Forest. They go to Liverpool. And we'll discuss Celtic's extraordinary collapse in Austria. 4-0 up on aggregate at one point, but once they let in the first, you could just feel it slipping away. And there's Big Ange and the Ronaldo power play. Your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hiya.
Hello, John Brewin.
Hello.
And good morning, Dan Bardell.
Max.
One of those pods where we'll look ahead to the Premier League weekend and talk about the Carabao Cup games that happened in midweek. So you had Spurs beating Charlton 5-1, Newcastle beating West Brom 3-2. Sanjeev saying Charlton have badly let down most of us by fielding a much weakened side and denying us more merriment and further Spurs pain. For shame. Look, Barry, it was a good win. They had to probably win because there would have been so much pressure on De Zerbi. But you feel this game against Newcastle is still, it's enormous for them.
Yeah, and I think it's a big game for Newcastle as well. I was a little disappointed by Charlton's approach to this game, to be honest. Nathan Jones said afterwards, it's a game we didn't need. To say something like that so early in the season strikes me as, well, it's contemptuous of the competition, but he can pick whatever side he wants. He made 10 changes from the side that beat West Ham at the weekend. Spurs welcome back, some of their A-listers, Bentancur, Mateus Fernandes, Solanke, Destiny Udogie all started. Pedro Porro and Mickey van de Ven were on the bench. I think they both came on. And Charlton had a couple of early chances, but once Spurs went ahead through a lovely left-footed shot from distance from Mikey Moore, it was pretty much over as a contest, and they went on to win at their leisure. It's a nice, good home win for a team that hasn't won too often at home in last season certainly. As for the game against Newcastle, that's another chance to impress at home. Whether they will or not remains to be seen. You'd imagine Newcastle will not be making 10 changes from the side that won or that drew with Liverpool last weekend. And I think it is important for Spurs to get off to a decent start at home following the absolute shambles at Brentford.
I'm not sure how many ex-City players will be on the pitch, John, but they're good at selling, aren't they? Savio and Marmoush at Spurs, Nico González at City. What do you make of the Savio-Marmoush deal? Sávio, as we should call him now, he scored. It was a lovely goal, wasn't it? And lots of City fans saying he never did that for us.
Yeah, I was going to correct you. Actually, he's now called Sávio. Inho means small, doesn't it? So he's thinking big. It means little. I think in Brazilian.
Does it mean little? I thought it was like son of. I thought it was like Rogerson.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Maybe it doesn't.
So
mean
Ronaldinho
little.
Was the junior version of Ronaldo, the former Ronaldo. God, you see, we're already tied up with it.
Yeah. I know.
So Sávio, as we shall now call him. Yes, Manchester City fans were calling this the deal of the century, weren't they? For considering the amount of money they received for him, and he did look electric against Charlton's reserves. It has to be said. That was.
Has anyone been damned with fainter praise? I'm wondering.
But that was his cameo was very exciting for Spurs fans. He himself looked like he really enjoyed himself, didn't he? He actually did score another goal, but it came off Ben Davies, who is, as ultimate pro and a guy who's doing his coaching badges and has ambitions in management, we're told, and maybe even ambitions of being a sporting director was something I heard a while back. Really responsible member of the team. Could Ben Davies have stepped aside and said, "Hey man, that's your goal as well," just to greet the new man? But I should mention, of course, not a Manchester City signing, but Mikey Moore set it off because there were, watching this game, a few nerves amongst those Tottenham fans, understandably. But yeah, referencing Manchester City, they do sell well. The Marmoush deal is a loan, thus cutting off various suspicions and calculations that people have done that it was to make sure that Eintracht Frankfurt did not receive a sell-on fee. It's all very confusing, the transfer market. I know Dan here probably has many views about the transfer market and about some of the deals that have been done. And some of them do raise an eyebrow. And Manchester City sales certainly do. But judging by that little cameo, maybe Tottenham have someone to get excited about. And, well, do they deserve to get something excited about? Well, let's allow them to get excited about that against Charlton reserves.
Yeah, I know. I think they're allowed to get excited, but you don't want that to actually come to any sort of fruition. I think that's the sort of that's. The
I'm Spurs agnostic.
Play.
I enjoy Spurs. They're okay.
Okay.
They're okay.
Okay, fine. What do you make of the González signing for Newcastle, Dan?
He's one of those players that I must have watched him a fair few times for Manchester City because I watch a lot of football, but I can't really remember anything about him other than him scoring a screamer in an FA Cup semi-final. I think clearly Newcastle need players. Clearly, you look back at that January 2025 window, I think it was, for Manchester City now, when they started this rebuild, a lot of those players already seem to be surplus to requirements and they're farming them off to different Premier League teams. But before he came into Manchester City, he was very, very highly rated. He was seen as the heir to Rodri's throne. Maybe a change of scenery will do him good. Newcastle, I feel, need that type of player, and even though it's very limited, he does have some form of Premier League experience to mix in with the players that they bought. A lot of young players, haven't they, Newcastle, who they're hoping will grow and turn into Premier League players. He fits the mould of being relatively young Nico González, but also he does have that element of Premier League experience as well.
Without wanting to be old men, Barry, it is sort of mad that 50 million gets you someone basically unproven in this league.
Yeah. I mean, my sole recollection of or awareness of Nico González is when myself and producer Joel got invited to the Leyton Orient flat where you watched Cambridge play during the pandemic, to watch Leyton Orient play City in, I think it was the third round of the Cup. And he started for City and had to go off injured after about 20 minutes because he was the subject of what if I remember correctly, was quite really bad challenge that went unpunished by one of the Orient players. And I can't think of anything else he's done because Dan mentioned that screamer he scored. I don't remember it at all. So, yeah, I just remember that him being stretched off and him being a very handsome young man. That's about it.
Yeah. And look, John, Newcastle looked really bright, I thought, against Liverpool. And given how Tottenham played everywhere, not just at the back, but just everywhere, you sort of think if Tottenham will have the ball and Newcastle will break, and if Wissa breaks like he did against Liverpool, then they really have a great chance, I think.
Yeah. Wissa did miss a good chance last night, which, there's a player that needs to...
He does that.
To prove himself to Newcastle fans, it's fair to say. Harvey Barnes, a player I eulogised, has that big chance, doesn't he, with Anthony Gordon now sold. It's funny, isn't it, that there is optimism at Newcastle, whereas a lot of us would wonder, with having sold essentially their midfield, and Anthony Gordon, you'd think it's one of those things where they're being asset stripped. But never underestimate the ability of Newcastle fans to get behind the manager when things are new and enjoy novelty. It's so early in the season, but Tottenham's defeat was so grim that if Newcastle do something against them, then we're back in the Tottenham whirligig, aren't we? That of just being spun around. And this is one of the reasons why I do enjoy Tottenham is that ability. Some of the fans call it the Odyssey, don't they? Because it's just so gripping. It's so good to watch. The other thing is De Zerbi himself, the manager, doesn't hold back. So he's good value. He's good copy. This is something that Thomas Frank, I wrote the Tottenham preview for The Guardian this season, and I wrote about the Igor Tudor thing. I compared it to a horror film, and I got a few complaints saying, well, why didn't you write that about Thomas Frank? Because we'd sort of forgot he was there for so long this season. And now Roberto De Zerbi just adds that extra element. Almost, if it was a horror movie, he's almost like some sort of avenger that comes up at the end of the film, and sorts it out.
But then he could end up being a killer zombie as well. Given how the season.
We're waiting for him
progress.
to be unmasked. Exactly. Yeah. And this is why people say this flocking back to the cinemas. Well, Tottenham are cinema, aren't they? As the kids say.
Yeah. Well, I'm so desperate for them not to lead the pod. I'd hope they just have some boring games that we don't notice. Sorry, Barry, did I interrupt you?
No. For what it's worth, Tottenham's recent record against Newcastle is pretty bad. They've lost 6 of their last 8 in the league, and Newcastle have won 3 of their last 4 away at Spurs. And a fun fact I picked up on the BBC website, this is the most played Premier League fixture. It's been played 61 times, never to have finished 0-0. So now that I've mentioned that, it's going to be 0-0.
I'd say there's no chance. I'd say there's
way.
absolutely no chance, is there? Manchester United Ipswich then is the Super Sunday game at 4:30. How early is too early for a must-win game, John?
Well, the thing is, last weekend I was away essentially staying in a barn in the Italian hills, essentially on a digital detox. So. But not enough of a digital detox to prevent WhatsApp and the misery raining down on that performance and that for which actually let me start by crediting. I've watched the game back, crediting how well Hull played and how fantastic it was to see that a club I have a great deal of affection for. Set piece defending, yeah. That's the thing these days. Seems Manchester United didn't bother with that over the summer, judging by the 2 goals that Hull scored. Ipswich waited so long, didn't they, last time out to get a Premier League win, and already have it, which is great for them. It definitely is a must win because we mentioned the Tottenham whirligig. Well, the Manchester United one is even more of a blockbuster, isn't it? Manchester United in crisis. We always almost lead the pod with that, much to listeners' annoyance. But they're Manchester United, and the midfield's lack of movement in that game was a concern. Tielemans summered well. It perhaps looked that way. Perhaps he's missing Dan already. We'll have to see about Andre Santos. Carlos Baleba, who they've signed, I've seen many times for Brighton. He can play some of the best 15 minutes of football you'll ever see from anybody. You're just thinking, this guy is absolutely brilliant. And you know what's coming.
Have you never seen him do 20? You never
I've
seen him do
20? No. And this is it. There are points where it's like, wow. They just, every time the ball comes, he's got it. And it's just like, this is incredible. And then there's another 75 minutes of the game to play. So a lot of work needs to be put in for a player of immense promise, it has to be said.
Sure. I mean, I without wanting to sound old, maybe you have to spend 70 million to get a good 15-minute player. Maybe that's the thing. Dan, what do you think of this game?
Well, I watched the game from my holiday on Saturday night. John was very impressed with Hull. I wasn't massively surprised by Manchester United's performance. I think on Tielemans, he's a phenomenal footballer, but the system at Villa was built around him and maybe did kind of leave his deficiencies at the door. Playing next to Boubacar Kamara, he would almost do the dirty work. And I'm not 100% convinced of him and Andre Santos as a central midfield partnership. Maybe Baleba will come in and be better next to him. But he did look sluggish and he did look sloppy. And all round, Manchester United just didn't win duels. Was the simple thing in the game, I would say. The only duel that was really won was Harry Maguire with Bryan Mbeumo, and it's a duel he shouldn't have really been involved in. So that wasn't great from a Manchester United perspective. I'm sure they'll bounce back and do something against Ipswich on Sunday at home. But I actually was impressed with Ipswich in their game as well. I thought they played really, really well against Sunderland. And Ciso looked like he was in fantastic form back to his early days at Brighton when he was coming onto the scene. So Ipswich will maybe go there and smell blood. They got a decent result there a couple of years ago, or on the cusp of getting a decent result from memory. But Manchester United need to win, because if you're playing Hull and Ipswich your first two games and you come away with 0 wins, obviously questions are going to be asked of you.
Yeah. Ipswich reportedly close to signing their first ever World Cup winner, Ezequiel Palacios from Leverkusen, the Argentine midfielder, joining for around 25 million. I don't recall him doing a lot in that World Cup final, obviously the 2022 one. They beat Leicester 3-1 in the League Cup on Tuesday night. I don't know about if you heard Gary O'Neill afterwards, sort of really sticking it into Russell Martin. I don't know if you heard that.
I didn't know, sorry.
Yeah, or just basically saying everybody knows what he tries to do, and it's really, you just do this, and this, and you win. I mean, Gary O'Neill has form for going on TV and saying, this is how I did this magical thing. They scored a guy called... Carry on, John.
Could I say, can we just enjoy Russell Martin while he's still around, because we know it might not last that long, but this guy's box office too. I mean, post-match, I watch almost every one of them, because his way of describing exactly the same thing every time in a slightly different way, and placing blame on others for not following his instructions that clearly don't work is one of the great... it's one of the great things in football, I think. I totally...
It's sort of getting to the stage where...
I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I want it to go well now. I know what you mean, but I sort of want it to go well now. It's getting to that stage, I think. Marcelino Nunes scored from the halfway line for Ipswich, in off the bar. Absolutely beautiful finish. I know Villa are playing on Monday, so we will have Monday's pod to look ahead to this. But since you're here, Dan, I'd quite like an Aston Villa summation of how you felt after 7 minutes and then how you felt after 31 minutes of that game against Brighton.
Yeah, John talks about 15-minute footballers. Villa for 10 minutes were absolutely great against Brighton. I thought you don't need a striker. You don't need the core of your team. We're going to be okay here. And then very quickly it turned into an absolute thumping, compounded by their new midfielder, who was probably shouldn't have played because he wasn't fit, getting sent off for lashing out. I wasn't surprised we lost. I was surprised at the manner of the defeat, but for the second year running, it just appears that Villa are going to kind of write off the first few weeks of the season and wait for the transfer window to shut and then get going. There's just so much going on. The turnover of players is absolutely incredible. Every time I do a Villa show, which is obviously my livelihood, it's out of date within about 20 minutes of coming out, which is a little bit of a pain.
You need to live stream now for the rest of your life.
All day. They just seem to pivot from target to target. Things fall through. They move on to the next one. It does feel very scattergun. In some ways, it's how Villa do have to operate because of the financial constraints and the regulations. But it is absolutely crazy. Like going to bed last night and Villa are signing Nicholas Jackson. Ollie Watkins is going to Saudi Arabia now. Obviously, he let himself down last week with the way he behaved. I've just got no idea at the end of the window what Villa's team is going to look like. But I've also got no idea what it's going to look like when we take on Arsenal on Monday. If it's anything like the team that took on Brighton, it could be another thumping, in all honesty.
Yeah. What do you make of that Watkins move, Barry?
You know, the money that he's being offered is very hard for him to turn down, I guess. Generational wealth, it keeps being described as, and he's approaching the end of his career. So I have no problem with him leaving Villa and going to Saudi Arabia. I'm not a fan of players downing tools and refusing to train or play, and if that's what happened, and it appears to be what happened, then yeah, it's unprofessional. I don't like it, but I'm not surprised that he's going there.
John, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I was going to ask Dan. I mean, about Watkins, because this guy's been a real hero for the fans, for the club, and then to blot his copybook like that. I mean, this guy has done so much for the club, but I suppose if you're at a club where so many transactions are taking place, is that how players are made to feel? Is that the problem with the club, or is that the problem with the way that the recruitment is done?
I think it's probably a combination of things. I think, as I said earlier, Villa have to operate in a certain way due to the regulations. I think when you've seen a lot of your teammates leave in the way Watkins will have done this summer, I think the fans maybe thought that winning the Europa League was like, this is our chance to kick on and we'll add some players. We're back in the Champions League, but it appears like it's ended up being a breaking point for a lot of players where maybe they think that this is probably as good as it gets. We're going to move on and try something new. And don't forget, a lot of these players have been at Villa a long time. Konsa, 7 years, Watkins, 6 years, Martínez, 6 years as well. Like they've all been there a long time in football terms nowadays. Players don't stay at one club for that long. The thing that's disappointing with Watkins is how he's behaved. To me, just isn't him. He's always talked about as being such a professional, does everything in the right way. There was a time last season where he was struggling and he could have come out the side, but Emery stuck with him, left him in because he was doing all the right things in training, always one of the first ones there, like basically doing everything that the other centre-forward wasn't doing at the time. So Watkins continued to be picked and ended the season brilliantly. Villa wanted him to stay, but the way he's behaved probably made it so that there was no way back for him, and the club had been offered a hell of a lot of money for someone who's 31 very soon, so they had to take it. And they're replacing him with someone who's 5 years younger, who the manager knows, who obviously, some fans will have had a laugh about at times when he was at Chelsea, Nicholas Jackson. But I do think there is a player there if he's got the right manager and he knows he's the guy and he's going to be the number one centre forward, which he will be at Villa. I feel sad about the Watkins thing more than anything. I've almost managed to stomach everything else, but I loved Ollie Watkins. He's been such a good player for us, and what he's done under Unai Emery, which is the other thing that I think is quite disrespectful, because Unai Emery's done a lot for Ollie Watkins, and I feel like he let him down last week as well. But it is what it is. The club will survive, and I'm still confident that whatever happens, Villa will be somewhere near where they need to be as long as they've got the manager, because he's the most important person at the club. I suppose
it's not excusing his behaviour, but if you are about to get generational wealth and you don't want to, break your leg, you think that it's just a funny. Obviously they're all paid so much money, but when it's generational wealth, it just is this image of, the Watkins empire. All these guys that have gone to Saudi for 3 years, exactly. The Watkins Tower. He lives in this palace somewhere. I don't know, and exactly. Well, sort of weird, incredibly wealthy, kind of quite good but not brilliant footballers kicking about in 20 years' time.
The thing is about this generational wealth thing. It didn't work out for Jordan Henderson, did it? I mean, we've heard a few reports about how that works, because he had to go to Ajax for tax reasons and all the rest of it. Presumably, it's interesting because we think of Ollie Watkins as just the player's pro, as Dan said, total dedicated professional, the type of guy you want around the dressing room. And as Dan said, I remember going to a game last season in the Europa League. I think was it Lille? Tammy Abraham played the first half, and the change in the team when Ollie Watkins came on and how much he inspired the crowd. I mean, they'll miss a player like that, I think, Villa, because, when you said he's been there 6 years, I mean, that does seem like a long time. The days of Dennis Mortimer and Nigel Spink are long gone, aren't they?
There's no general. What's the Spink's generational wealth? We don't know. Is there a Spink Tower somewhere? Anyway, Arsenal might be in for Alvarez. Barcelona want him, and there's all sorts of shenanigans between Barca and Atleti. But Arsenal may come in just to make them even better.
I don't think he's welcome at Atleti anymore. Anyway, Steve wrote a very good piece on Monday about the absolute monstering he got at the Wanda Metropolitana on when he played for Atletico at the weekend. I think they drew with, was it Villarreal maybe? But he's cutting a very forlorn figure at Atletico, so he needs to go somewhere.
He does. And Atleti said there is a 0% chance of selling him to Barcelona. It's not about money. It's about dignity. At some point, I'm sure that could be quoted back to Atleti. Hold on to that quote. Anyway, that'll do for part one. Part two, we'll start with Palace versus City. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Man City go to Palace on Friday night. 2 new managers, lots of overhaul in their squad. And the thing is, Baz, and we mentioned this about Palace, they literally must be just trying to. Pierre Sarge is standing in front of the window, going, as players are just trying to dive through it, and he's just there going, "No, Jean-Philippe, no, not you, no, Ismaila, no." I hadn't even thought about Sarr leaving, but who knows what their team will look like.
Yeah, well, Sarr seems to be the one who's, him and Mateta are both agitating for moves away. Sarr was the first at Galatasaray after him, I think. I know Palace lost against Everton at the weekend. I thought they played quite well. I thought Adam Wharton was superb. He played some sublime passes. Whether or not they'll be able to cope with City remains to be seen. But I think if they were to lose 2 or even all 3 of those players, it would be an absolute disaster for them. And if they were to lose them, coming right before the window closes, that would be even worse because it seriously harms their chances of getting in even remotely adequate replacements. I mean, Mateta's replaceable. I think Sarr's replaceable. Wharton is just such a talent. How do you go about replacing him? I don't know.
Yeah, Villa apparently interested in Mateta. Just in case you hadn't run that in your last bit, Dan. And,
he's on a list of 15 max, I think, 15 centre forwards.
Okay. Liverpool as well in for Ismaila Sarr, which would be a really interesting move for him. What do you think will happen in this game, John?
I think a Manchester City win is highly possible. It's interesting, the City we saw last weekend looks at very much a work in progress. And we're still in that Pep hangover. I suppose you can draw comparisons for Palace with Villa in the fact that they achieved this European dream, and you think this could be the start of something fantastic, and then everyone wants to leave. I suppose this is modern football, isn't it? This is the way it works. These are the way. Ismaila Sarr to Liverpool. Now Liverpool have had this thing all summer, haven't they? They sold Mohamed Salah and it appeared not to have wanted to buy a right winger. Obviously, the Bradley Barcola thing drags on forever. Sarr seems a bit of an option quite a way down the list, though he is a very good player and he definitely missed my Palace. But I wonder how much how successful he would be at Liverpool. At this point of the season, this is the problem with the transfer window, isn't it? It drags so much of a veil over the actual action. Is you're actually talking about stuff that's, you've got one game to go off, and then you've got a transfer window, and that appears to blur.
It's not an easy job, John. We're making you do today.
No, I know. It's so difficult.
Put you in an impossible position.
That's the impossible position. Some of those Palace players are in. Adam Wharton, I think, has been most closely linked, hasn't he, with Liverpool? But by the sounds of it, Liverpool don't really have the funds to do that deal. Somebody somewhere will land Adam Wharton, will land a jewel of a player, as Barry says. But I still am of the mind that I do like every team having a player that I really admire, and that this season at Palace is going to have to be Adam Wharton, I think.
Chelsea Brighton on Sunday. Chelsea look good going forward, not so good going backwards, Baz. And Brighton absolutely hammered Villa.
Yeah, they did. Brighton are a very good team, but they're more than capable of serving up the odd stinker. They obviously also a Chelsea feeder club. So, again, it's a tough one to call on the evidence of what we've seen thus far. One would presume Brighton should win, but they're away from home. Whether they can play as well as they did last weekend, and whether Chelsea will be as accommodating as Aston Villa, that seems unlikely. But it wouldn't be a massive shock if Brighton beat Chelsea.
And look, we talked a lot about Robert Sanchez and rumours they're in for Martínez, which would seem sensible, Dan.
Yeah, apparently his representatives have offered Chelsea the opportunity to sign him because basically he's sat at Villa's training ground at the moment, not doing very much because Villa have already replaced him because they're a little bit fed up of the antics of the last 2 years. So he needs to go somewhere. Chelsea is the most logical place for him to land, I would say. How Chelsea are starting with Robert Sanchez as their goalkeeper for the 4th season running, I think it is absolutely blows my mind because, in my opinion, he's the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League. He's in the team because he gives off an illusion that he's good with his feet, but he isn't very good with his feet. He just exudes panic on the defence, and Chelsea have sorted their defence to an extent. They've got in on their attack as well. Their attack looked very tasty on Monday night. If they sort the goalkeeper position out, I genuinely believe that Chelsea could challenge Arsenal for the title. I think with Alonso at the helm, a system that suits the personnel that's there. They've always had good players. It just hasn't quite come together. I genuinely think Chelsea could be the closest challengers to Arsenal this season, but they have to change the goalkeeper.
Does he have an air of you say illusion? Robert Sanchez could be an illusionist. Like he sort of got. I could see him in a sort of big, sort of cloak type vibes. Hanging from a box or something like that. Any other games of interest? And Liverpool Forest is an interesting one, isn't it, John? Like Oliver Glasner getting booed already after they lost to Leeds again. It's a bit unfair to have to. They're constantly playing home to Leeds. They've got to play home to Leeds another 15 times this season. But they've got a good record at Anfield, good record against Liverpool Forest. But that'll be tricky.
Yeah, Forest pulled off that famous win, didn't they, a couple of years ago? Arne Slot got very obsessed with. The only defeat they suffered for quite a large part of that season. Are the Forest fans booing Glasner because of his association with Crystal Palace? Is that what it is?
Do you know what? I reckon if you lose to the same team twice, I reckon it's a real kind of. We saw this don't do it again. I think if it had been a different team, maybe it would have been the same. I don't know. It feels like you can't keep losing. I know it's only twice, but that feels a lot of times to play them at the start of a season.
I mean, I don't know this, but is Glasner a popular appointment among the fans of Forest? I'm not sure. I mean, the thing is, things with Glasner, it's like you appoint a manager who doesn't hang around a lot. Well, it seems like he's at the ideal club then, doesn't he? If he's appointed by... Yeah. If he's appointed by Forest, but maybe they'd taken to Vitor Pereira, who left quite happily, who knew the deal there. And as for Liverpool, well, I mean, Liverpool again, we've got the transfer window wide open there and casting a glare over their entire summer, really, because Richard Hughes, their sporting director, is reaching pariah status on Merseyside for the perceived lack of business. So far, the Jeff Bezos billions have not been spent on signing every player ever. So that's been really disappointing for the fans. Let's see this. But as you say, Forest have a good record there. It's a good fixture, isn't it? It's a kick-off for the weekend.
Yeah. Bournemouth, Everton, Coventry, Hull, Leeds, Brentford, Sunderland, Fulham. Baz, what would you pick out?
Well, I'm going to pick Sunderland, Fulham, obviously. Sunderland lost against Ipswich at the weekend, gave away a couple of really sloppy goals after they played Fulham, who I thought were good, really good against Chelsea.
Yeah, I agree.
In defeat. They've got Brentford away and Arsenal at home. So I think this is already a must-win game for Sunderland. Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football tipped them to be relegated. And I think quite a few Sunderland fans weren't particularly impressed. But whether he's right or wrong, it was hard to disagree with his logic that Sunderland overperformed last season, as per the metrics and whatnot, by finishing 7th. I think he tipped them to be bottom of the table this season.
Wow.
I wouldn't be surprised if they struggle. It's Sunderland. Disaster is never far away. Like never.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
absolutely.
I'm hopeful they'll stay up, and maybe they will comfortably. But I am slightly concerned. So if they were to lose this and then have to go to Brentford and then face Arsenal, that could be a real bad start to the season.
Yeah, all right, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll round out the rest of the Carabao Cup and talk about Celtic. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Vicar Street next week on Tuesday. So if you're in Dublin or Ireland or close by, I have nothing to do on Tuesday. Still a few tickets left. And then on the 9th, we are at the Soho Theatre in Walthamstow. John, you're coming to Dublin, aren't you?
So it is said, yeah. Well, I've got my flight ticket, so there you go. Yeah.
Good. Okay, good. And will you come to the theatre? Will you come to Vicar Street with us?
So, yeah, I hope to make some form of appearance, yeah.
Excellent news. John Brewin, Baz, Jonathan Wilson. And can I announce the Soho Theatre ones yet? I mean, I did on Instagram, and then I was told that isn't necessarily the lineup. So I don't know if producer Joel has had to do some tracking back. Here we go. Johnny Lou, Nicky Bandini, Mark Langdon. So there may well be a bridge. Guardian.co.uk/Football Weekly Live. Me, Baz, John Brewin, and Jonathan Wilson on the 1st in Dublin, and then me, Baz, Johnny Lou, Nicky Bandini, and Mark Langdon on the 9th in Walthamstow. Come along. So on Tuesday night, I was at the Abbey to watch us lose to Millwall, but it was nice to go back there. I had the Philly cheesesteak, which tasted better in the morning than it was the next day. And we looked quite good, and it was just lovely to see the Abbey. And it was not a very fascinating game. And then I was like, I did have a sort of existential crisis about whether I found football boring, just watching, two teams they played a bit of nice football, but there was a lot of centre forwards grappling with centre backs. And the Millwall, Jake Cooper, the Millwall centre back, is 6'4", but I reckon he's 20 foot in real life. Absolutely, and just ginormous man. But it was nice to be back. West Ham beat Southampton 4-1. They needed a win. Peter Braham had Watford 5-1 at Vicarage Road. But Watford did make 11 changes. I don't know if anything else piqued your interest, any of you, from the other League Cup games?
I enjoyed Brentford beating Birmingham 6-1. That was a particular highlight for me, personally.
I can imagine.
Tiernan O'Barry scored his first ever Everton hat-trick in the David Moyes derby. Preston 0, Everton 4. It was played 131 years after their first meeting. I think David Moyes was in charge of Preston back then. But Kieran in Dewsbury Hall was outstanding in this game. And I've just noticed there's 2 people staring out a window in the house opposite me, just staring at me, presumably wondering what the hell I'm doing.
Well, okay. Barry, I've got the police outside, so I don't know about you, but...
All right, okay.
I've got the hackneyed...
I kept seeing that siren flash up. I wonder what it was.
Okay. This is exciting, isn't it? So Barry's about to be taken out. I'm about to be put in a wheelie bin, and John's about to be arrested. So it will just be you, Dan, for the rest of the night.
Anything to say about Villa, Dan?
I was going to say that just flashed up on my phone that Liverpool have agreed a £120 million fee for Barcola from PSG.
Wow.
Okay.
That might get Richard Hughes off the hook for a while.
Yeah.
Possible. Yeah, but anyway, sorry. Everton, Tiernan O'Barry hat-trick, Kieran Dewsbury Hall was excellent, and Brendan Johnson scored for Everton as well.
That's nice. Did he manage to do that for Palace?
It was his first goal in 33 games, which surprised me. I presumed he sort of popped up with one every 5 or 6 games, but...
I don't think he scored one for Palace. I think that was a sort of...
No, he didn't.
Anyway, 3rd round draw. Liverpool Spurs probably the pick of the ties.
Did you? I was going to say, did you watch the way this draw was done? Did you see the way?
I like a draw. No, tell me.
It was done in 2 halves, right? And they did it ahead of
a draw of 2 halves.
A draw of 2 halves. I've never seen this before. Not even Gianni Infantino has come up with a stratagem as exciting as this. Before the game, the draw is done by Jimmy Redknapp and Jermaine Beckford, which is very exciting. And Pete Mullenstein, friend of the show, it was teams that are in Europe, but not Brighton, had their draw come out, but they only drew out whether it was they were home or away. And the reason for this is that they are playing. Now, why they had to draw them ahead of this game when they've only got a week to? I don't know. There was some sort of strange idea. Anyway, so after the 3rd round had finished, and it actually hasn't finished because Fulham play Wimbledon tonight, a game I'm going to. Then they drew out the teams to face them, which added a bit of excitement to the draw after the game. And I've got no idea why they did it in 2 halves. It was just It's very, very strange. Very strange. So
I'm sure that'll catch on from
So Arsenal knew that they were playing away 2 hours before, but then had to wait 2 hours to learn their opponent. I mean, the jeopardy
See where they were going.
Yeah,
and they're going to Ipswich, which is a tough place to go. Like, just literally is a tough place to go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's horrible.
It is that is strange, isn't it? I mean, like, why leave it to just a game? Why not start the FA Cup third round draw the moment the second round is finished, or once the second round is done, and then just wait, leave it into December, one a day. We get one draw a day, and we finally find out where we're going. Richard says emergency jazz bar visit, surely. So on Tuesday night, Celtic went out of the Champions League at the playoff stage, second season running. This time against Austrian side Lask. They won the first leg 3-0. They went 1-up in Austria, and then they let in lots of goals, Barry.
Yeah, it was a catastrophic collapse from Celtic. They're 3-0 up from the first leg. And it was the first leg. They didn't have it all their own way. I think 3-0 really flattered them. But Callum McGregor put them 4-0 up on aggregate after 21 minutes of this game, a deflected shot. Benjamin again, awful back pass, gifted a lifeline to Lask, and it was a lifeline they grasped firmly with both hands and ended up scoring 5 goals without reply. They missed a penalty. They missed several other good chances. And in the end, I would say the 5-1 second leg win for Lask really flattered Celtic, although they did have a couple of good chances to go 5-0 up on aggregate before Lask scored their goal. So it's difficult to know who to blame for this. Last year, when they went out to Kairat Almaty on penalties at the same stage, the big finger of blame was pointed at the board, who had decided to wait to see whether they would qualify for the Champions League before spending any money on players. This season, they've spent about 23 million, I think, on 4 new players. They need more in the door. But I don't think you can put the blame here anywhere other than squarely on the players and their head coach, Martin O'Neill. They looked unfit. They looked nervous. They panicked under pressure and then completely capitulated. And at the end of the game, Callum McGregor, who was furious, said, "We got what we deserve. Now we'll see what people are made of." And I'm thinking, well, we've just seen what you're made of, Callum, and not a great deal. Papier-mâché. So I heard you and Charlie talking about this with various people on the radio yesterday, Max, and you're talking about grassroots football and in the need for investment in Scottish football and stuff like that, academies and whatnot. But look, they were 4-0 up. There's no excuse to lose this match. That's nothing to do with grassroots football.
No, I agree with you. The point I was making, we spoke to Barca Jim a bit later, and he actually did blame the board. He said there's 70 million in the bank, and we should have spent more of that before this game. This is the second year they're not in the Champions League, and that has a huge financial impact. The point I was making is what happens when when this happens, it becomes like there is a crisis in Scottish football, which there may be, grassroots academy players coming through. You're right. That is not connected to it being 4-0 up, but it becomes this kind of general discussion where just whoever says they just need more investment, but no one ever says, well, there isn't any money. Like if the FA had Scottish FA had the same money as the English FA, they would build a St George's Park, you presume, right? But they're just finding that money is not easy, is it? When, the TV deals for Scottish football teams are tiny and other people are saying, the clubs need to come together to improve Scottish football, but that's not how club football works, does it? Rangers aren't going to spend any time. They've got enough of their own problems to worry about Celtic being knocked out by Lask. What's St Mirren thinking about this? Nothing. They're just, and as every other Scottish football fan would have absolutely loved Lask putting Celtic out, even if it
especially Hearts.
Even if it affects their own coefficient.
Interestingly, Max, you mentioned St Mirren there. Lask had an English fella come off the bench in this game called Miguel Freckleton, and he was in the St Mirren side that beat Celtic in the League Cup final last season.
Great name as well, Mikael Freckleton, isn't it? Rangers lost in the Europa League qualifying to Polish side Jagiellonia Białystok. Hearts did qualify for the Europa Conference League, drew 4 on aggregate with Rapid Vienna before winning 4-3 on penalties. Robert says, can we get a voice note from Lars on his thoughts that 2 clubs from Norway have reached the Champions League? First time they've had 2 teams, Bodo Glimt and Viking. First time since 99-2000 after Viking got past Dinamo Zagreb. And
interesting, actually, one of the players Celtic spent the most on this summer is that guy. What's his name? He was striker for Bodo Glimt last season. Who did really well in the Champions League. Yeah, he did nothing on the other night. But I mean, Celtic barely got out of their own half, so it's not on him.
Yeah, I think he's had Kasper Hug. You think he's had a pretty decent start, that aside. And you also noticed Baz and Postecoglou, who's in Saudi, managing Ronaldo and taking, and not doing the reverse Roberto Martínez.
Yeah, so Big Ange is in charge of Al Nassr, the Ronaldo team. They were losing 2-0 at half-time against Al Ettifaq. And Ronaldo was throwing a bit of a tantrum on his way off the pitch for the halftime break. And he didn't come out for the second half. He was hooked. And Al Nassr went on to win 3-2, despite having a man sent off. Ange was asked about the decision to substitute Ronaldo after the game, and he refused to dwell on it and said, no, I want to talk about the 10 guys who came back from 2-0 down and won this game for me. It's not about him, this. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship develops over the passage of time.
It will.
They're probably quite used to playing with 10 men if they're playing with Ronaldo every week at the moment anyway, aren't they?
Isn't it? Anyway, just clip that bit up so people can yell at Dan. The Ronaldo ultras can get stuck into Dan. It's at Dan Bardell if you're interested. All right, and that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, John.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Baz.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Max.
Football Weekly is produced by Matt Bentley-Viney and Jesse Howard. The executive producer is Joel Grove, and we'll be back on Monday.